When an individual reaches that midlife, or they're looking a little bit later in their life, now they have very reliable and well-developed dominant and auxiliary functions. And they're going to shift their focus and attention and energy to developing the less preferred functions. This is moving towards somebody's unexpected and unexplored potential. And in the first half of the life, people are going to specialize in establishing their firm sense of identity. They take place in their world by making choices that develop some parts of themselves at the expense of others. And as individuals move toward completeness in the second half of their life, they become more generalists. This transition does not change their psychological type. It's important to remember that. It doesn't change it. It merely means that they're developing all of the mental functions. It leads to an increased skilled use of previously undeveloped mental functions and the ability to call upon them. The midlife time is a shift from the first half of their life, and it's major. It is very stressful for some people, and some people make this transition very smoothly, though, and they find their attitudes and sense of direction have changed virtually without any notice at all. Some people, however, have a great discomfort and even maybe depression, and they wonder, is this all there is to life? These feelings are part of what leads a person to reevaluate and to make the changes that they need. And if an outside event, such as a change in place of living, divorce, a job, or the death maybe of a friend or somebody, the transition in this life is going to be very traumatic and even painful. The transition period into the second half of the life can be difficult, but it is necessary as a part of their growth. Sometimes people are going to approach the possibilities of this midlife transition and they're going to back away, while others are going to jump into it, and they're going to learn that the continued growth is going to require the development of the parts of one that have been remaining inside, that they are a little more desired to jump into looking at these new behaviors and these new ways of growing, and to draw upon new functions in order to express oneself and continue their complete personality growth. Well, what happens then when people simply stop learning? Because some people do, and it's hard to give up something which is very well known and used for something that is unknown. And this happens often when a person feels very comfortable with their identity and they simply do not want to look at anything more. One of the issues that makes midlife transition more difficult is that people tend to misunderstand their underdeveloped preferences, and they have biases against them. For example, those with a preference for intuition have not likely used their sensing function, maybe not at all, and may judge all sensing-related activities by their undeveloped form. Then they're going to tend to see sensing as boring, a repetition. It's not fun. They find it too stressful sometimes. And they're going to see them as being, or rather sensing people will see intuition as being off the wall or flaky. And these distorted images really inhibit a person's motivation and their ability to really develop these less preferred functions. Looking at the rewards for personality type and personal growth, if the individual really can handle the stress and explore these new things, they're going to find a sense of confidence, self-acceptance, self-awareness, flexibility, adaptability, and they're going to have a more graceful, effective way of expressing themselves and their talents. They will also find a renewed sense of freedom and more tolerance and increased appreciation for the differences of other people. They are even going to have an enhanced ability to relate to others. Within personality development, we certainly do not want to say that type development or personal growth ends at midlife. It continues, and workshops are actually offered at later life development, and they've produced some great examples and personal insights of growth within individuals who are 60 and older. For instance, a man with an ISTJ preference spoke of the mellowing process he had experienced. An ISFP woman reported learning to set clear limits on what she needed to do for others and deliver direct statements. In contrast, an ENFP woman had spent a lifetime feeling that her exuberance and expansive interests were wrong and were too much, and she finally exclaimed that it was okay to be who she was. Remember that the MBTI model really sees a human development as a lifelong process. You're going to strive toward completeness. You want to have an individualization that reaches self-realization. It's becoming one's very best self. When looking at this type development, there are two ways in which it's going to occur. There's the conscious and the unconscious. Without the conscious growth, meaning that it happens unconsciously, it's part of an innate desire or an urge just to continue growing. When it has a conscious process, it means that the individual is using a model. They're actually directing their attention and exploring their individual growth. This natural process of type development unfolds as people find themselves pulled into new activities or hobbies or interests during their midlife or even later life. And they begin to realize that they can be more effective if they develop skills for which they have previously seen or had little use at all.